It's time for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group with certified financial planners Kevin Korhorn, Mike Bernard, and Josh Gregory.
Welcome to another episode of the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group, where every week we're helping you take your next wise step in your financial life. Thanks for being here, friends. My name is Mike Bernard. I am your host. I'm also one of the certified financial planners on the program. And with me in the KFG studios, my business partners and fellow CFPs, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory.
Roth IRAs are one of the most powerful tools for building tax-free wealth, but there are plenty of misconceptions about how they work, from who can contribute to how withdrawals are taxed to what happens in retirement. That and more on this hour of the Wise Money Show.
Yep, nothing but questions today, and the most common question that we get from fans of the show is about the Roth IRA and different layers to it, so some sort of surfacey and then others just deep in the weeds. We're helping with that right now. If you have a question for the program, we'd love to hear from you. You can call or text us, 574-222-2000. That's 574-222-2000. Online, wisemoneyshow.com is where you can find us. Leave questions there as well. And then all over social media, wherever you're at, we are there as well. Search the Wise Money Show. And yeah, we get a lot of questions, specifically on the YouTube channel, about the Roth IRA. Came in the studio today, and both Josh and Kevin blessed me. Josh said, "Oh, we're talking about the Roth IRA. Surprise, surprise." Because you guys know it's one of my favorite topics. There's just so many planning opportunities. But then the other is, I said, yeah, we're hitting questions. And Kevin said, "Why do you think we get so many questions about the Roth?" Because we talk about it all the time. No, I believe it is because the concept of the Roth IRA, which we're going to share basics with you right now, it's simple on the surface. But you get just below the surface, and there is depth there and a lot of obscurity and circumstance and just weirdness. And we're going to get into that today.
Love it.
All right.
Yeah, I go back to 1998 when the Roth IRA first came out, and IRA contribution limits were $2,000 per year. Mm-hmm. And it really was not believed. It was not easily accepted because it was such a foreign concept. And I remember explaining it to people and people looking at me saying, yeah, it doesn't work like that. There's no way that works like that. It's not possible. Mm-hmm. And it took a long time for the adoption of the Roth IRA. And like many financial things, it's simple in concept, but complex in the execution of the concept.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot to it.
It's cool that you remember its foundation and when it started. I mean, you were in the business already when they came out. Mike and I don't know a day where there wasn't a Roth IRA available, but even early on in my career, it's exactly as you said, Kevin. I was encountering people who just didn't believe that it wasn't going to be the rug ripped out from underneath you later on in life, where they're saying, hey, it'll be tax-free in retirement. That's too good to be true. I don't believe it, that sort of thing. And I don't know, I think over, 28 years, however long it's been, I think people are believing it, and it is a more used tool. And the original purpose, the hope that it would be something that younger people would use and take advantage of their maybe lower tax bracket years to do contributions and everything, it is happening. People are doing it, and now it's even expanded into Roth 401ks.
Yeah.
And people had a good reason to believe that because at the time there was an excess tax on retirement plan distributions. So I don't remember the exact details. I'm going to say something above $155,000. And so that was to get after the folks that had these massive pensions. And so there was a lot, and I would say it's still not off the table. So, I mean, they haven't changed the rules yet. Yeah. But, they're depending on what happens, there could always be an excise tax in the future, or you distributed too much. I mean, when you first started, your income had to be below a certain level to even do a Roth conversion.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that. And I still am hopeful that Congress doesn't change the rules It seems like the momentum is more Rothification, not less, and so that gives me some hope there. Okay, no matter what you would, self-assess your Roth expertise at, we're going to hit some basics, and then we're also going to go deep as well. So wherever you're at, this content is for you. Just before we get into the common misunderstandings, the common questions we get about the Roth, just the basics. Just the basics. If you're eligible, we'll talk about that a little bit. You've got to have earned income, but your overall modified adjusted gross income needs to be below certain levels. You can contribute to a Roth IRA. That contribution is not tax deductible. You do not get a tax benefit when you make that contribution. But then inside the Roth, you invest it, and the growth and capital gains, dividends, interest is tax sheltered within there. And then as long as you're age 59 and a half and you've had a Roth IRA for at least 5 years, you can withdraw that growth out and it is tax-free. That's the basics. Did I miss anything on the basics?
No, but I mean, when we say that so commonly that, the growth is tax-free, that is one of the most powerful things that exists in the world of tax shelters and tax planning and all of that.
That's why I changed my middle name, Josh.
That's right.
It was just given to me, forced upon me.
No, to me, to recognize that there is money that you're going to set aside into a retirement account, and yes, you're already going to have paid taxes on that money, but then the growth, the accumulation, all that compounding that happens after that point, for that to be tax-free, there is nowhere else other than maybe an HSA. Mm-hmm. There's nowhere else where you can postpone and then completely avoid the growth that occurs in these investment accounts. It's amazing.
Yeah. Tax deferral is a very, very powerful tool. And if you can accumulate wealth tax deferred, it's great. It's just at some point in time, you're going to have to pay the piper. And that is the beautiful thing. Again, there's two ways to get money into a Roth. You can contribute or you can convert. But however you get it in, if you get that money growing tax deferred long term for you, it is what I used to say it's a 24 karat gold Cadillac. And people look at it kind of funny now because it's like, well, that's a nerd's mobile.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so let's jump in. And these are the most common questions that we get about the Roth IRA, the most common misconceptions. And the first one all has to do with age. I'm going to phrase it in the most common version, but there's different ways to approach it. And that is, I'm too old to contribute to a Roth IRA. Guys, is there an age limit on making a Roth IRA contribution?
No, thankfully there's not. And I understand why, it is a misconception. Maybe if you've known in the past, once upon a time, traditional IRAs had an age limit. When you got to age 70 and a half, you couldn't keep on contributing. That was also the age that they made you start pulling money out for required minimum distributions. And a lot of people just assume, well, that also applies to Roth IRAs. It actually applies to neither now.
Right.
So Congress has lifted that rule, and you can be in your 80s working a part-time job in retirement, earning some money, and that makes you eligible to make a contribution to a Roth IRA. It's pretty powerful.
So this hits so many of the questions, guys. So even if you said, oh, I knew that, hang with us. So if it's not an age criteria, what's the criteria? And you hit it. You've got to have earned income. Mm-hmm. You've got to have earned income. So again, common questions. Does a pension count? No. And that great question, because it's money that you earned that you didn't receive during your working years. You received it in retirement. A pension is not earned income. Social Security is not earned income. It's got to be paycheck money.
Yep.
Yeah. If you were going to do a T-chart and you say what counts and what doesn't count, what counts is wages, salaries, tips, commissions, self-employment, contractor income, military pay, non-taxable combat pay, disability pay if received before minimum retirement age. So that stuff counts as eligible income. What doesn't count, and Mike, you hit this, Social Security benefits or a pension, deferred compensation, inherited IRA distributions, rental income, unless it's active business income, and investment income. So think
interest,
dividends, capital gains, those types of things.
Yep.
So this is where you want to understand kind of the character and the nature of your income and what counts. But the other thing is, if you're a household you might say, well, my wife has income, but I don't. So she can contribute and I can't. And that's a common misconception.
Yeah, that's right. There's such thing as a spousal Roth IRA. So there is no maximum age where you're too old, you can no longer contribute, just like there isn't hey, I'm too young. That's the other thing we want to make crystal clear. The benefit is when you're young, you've just got to have earned income. So there you go. Tell all your kids to go get a job. You're welcome. All right, there's actually a little bit more here with this, and then other common misunderstandings, questions with the Roth IRA. We've got that more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show. What you're watching right now is our weekly 1-hour talk show that airs right here on this channel, 10 a.m. Eastern time every Saturday morning, and also on podcast at the same time, and also on a couple local radio stations, which is why the content's structured the way that it is. It is long form. We've got shorts and stuff that break things up as well, but it is long form. But we also have kind of commercial breaks for the radio show, and in its place, we insert bonus content. You'll see that here in just a second. But if you're looking for more content that is directly related to one concept or helping you take your next wise step in your financial life, we've got lots of content, shorter form videos and shorts, like I mentioned. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you're made aware every time we drop new content. If you like the content, appreciate it. And leave your most common Roth IRA question below. Leave your question below. We will answer it. So, all right.
Okay, here's a bonus question for you.
Oh, you've got it. Let's go.
Well, how old were you guys when you had your first paycheck? And what was your job? Do you remember?
Yeah.
And not like, I am sure you were selling eggs and mowing lawns and stuff. I've heard some of your stories. But first paycheck.
First paycheck was, there used to be these things called movie rentals, a video store.
Yep.
And I had just gotten my learner's permit, and we were driving down the road, and a new strip mall opened up, and they were putting a little local video rental store right there. And I told my mom, I think, I should go and apply at that job because it was right around the corner from our neighborhood. And she said, yeah, go ahead. And the guy hired me on the spot. Like he was unloading boxes, and I'm going in for an interview, had no idea what to expect. And he was like, okay, can you help me with these boxes? Sort of thing. And my first paycheck was like peanuts and raisins. Like I bet it was $3 an hour. I don't know, $4 an hour. It was nothing.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, so I'm wondering the paycheck that counts towards Social Security, because I worked at Mike's Farm Market. I think we were 10 or something like that. And we would drive our motorcycles. It was about 3.5 miles. We were in the country, and we could drive them just to where civilization began. And that's where Mike's Farm Market was. And I made $1.25 an hour, but we picked up an envelope from my friend David's house, and it was cash. And so it was kind of a paycheck, but technically it wasn't a paycheck. But I remember.
So how old were you?
10.
Okay.
Maybe.
So I was 15. Yeah.
But yeah, it was a little bit different in that time, and because we were treated differently. And I lived in the country, and my closest neighbor was a half mile away, and you lived differently, and you were it was kind of expected that you would work. Like, of course you're working. And through high school I worked at a farm, and that I got paid there. I think my first paycheck with a W-2 and a pay stub was I helped at a gym in town that I worked out in, and I helped clean that. But anyway, what was yours?
Yeah, Josh, what about you?
Caddy at a country club,
nice,
just within walking distance. I was 13.
Didn't know we were in presence of royalty here.
No. You had to show up at like 6 a.m. to put your name on a list. It was like first come, first serve. And the golfers didn't show up until 8 or later. So you're just sitting around. And so if you broke that down into hourly rate, yeah, it was more like $1.25 kind of a thing.
Okay, let me ask you, would you have your kids do that? Because one of Kuiper's close friends' older brother, there's a scholarship caddy program in town, and they said it was a phenomenal experience.
That's cool.
And I actually was thinking of telling Kuiper you're going to do that.
I
next summer.
loved it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know about that, and I know the guy that is in charge of the real estate for that program. They have houses at universities all over the country, so you can go and basically get a full scholarship to go to college and live in their, houses or dorms or whatever. It's pretty amazing. Yeah,
That's cool.
Okay, so just the 15% excise that I was talking about on excess distributions, it was in place from 87 to 96, and it was a 15% excise tax on total annual retirement plan distributions exceeding $150,000.
Oh my goodness.
Whoa.
I never knew about this.
So that was in place, and Chat wasn't giving it to me right away, but they finally did. It was eliminated by the Small Business Job Protection Act of 1996. So,
Crazy.
Crazy.
All right, here we go. Let's get back into it. A little bit on the age, just one other point to make, and then we just got to keep cruising. We'll go to misunderstanding number 2. Here we go. If you were quizzed on how well you understand the 5-year rule with the Roth IRA, would you pass? We're gonna help make sure you get a passing grade right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KF2 studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Stay up to date on all Wise Money content. Find us online, wisemoneyshow.com, and then all over social media, wherever you're at, we are there as well. Search the Wise Money Show. Most common questions that we get from you is it has to deal with the Roth IRA, and we get lots of questions from retirement to Social Security to investment strategies, tax strategies, of course, but a lot just about different layers to the Roth IRA. Some basic questions and some very, very deep. We're addressing the top 5 that we get, but really we're hitting 20 or more. And the first one is there an age limit on contributing to the Roth? There is not. We cleared that up. There's not an age minimum either. But the other common question that we get that's connected to this is, am I too old to benefit from contributing to a Roth? I'm close to retirement. I feel like I'm past that, right? Because of all the reasons that we already mentioned. That is, the benefit of the Roth is on that tax-free growth. And listen, I'm nearing retirement. I'm past that, right? No, you're not. You are a spring chicken. Your retirement's going to be decades.
Right.
So if you have the ability and if it makes sense in the context of your financial plan, all 6 areas in your tax plan, you're not too old. It's not too late to fund that Roth IRA. Any other quick comments on that, guys?
Well, a lot of retirees start turning their attention to what kind of financial legacy are they leaving behind as well. Because if there's going to be any amount of extra dollars at the end of retirement that get passed down to other generations, to me, to have a portion of that, or maybe even all of that, be tax-free to them, it takes a blessing and just amplifies it significantly. It's a blessing on steroids. Yeah. So I don't know, just keep that in mind, that this could be a tool that benefits you during your lifetime, and it may completely change your family tree as well.
Yep. All right, second most common misunderstanding, and there are so many tucked within this category. I'm just labeling it the 5-year rules. Guys, there's 2 5-year rules. There used to be 3, and I suppose you can get creative and say there's a third right now, but there's mainly 2. What are the 2 5-year rules?
Well, the first one has to do with your contributions. And, we always say that you're contributing money after tax, so you've already paid the tax on that. And as long as you allow it to grow until age 59 and a half, when you take withdrawals out, any of the growth can be tax-free, as long as it's been in place for 5 years. And that 5-year little caveat often gets dropped off because it's just sort of assumed that, you're getting started with that Roth IRA when you're in your 20s or your 30s. And of course, by the time you get out past age 59 and a half, it's well past 5 years. But there are, many people that have been doing most of their contributions to maybe a 401k at work or some other traditional IRA account. And maybe they're kind of turned on to this Roth IRA idea later in their career. Well, even if you're in your late 50s, you can still open up a Roth IRA and begin contributing to it. Just keep in mind that tax-free growth needs to stay in the account at least 5 years. Otherwise, you may have to pay some taxes on that money. If you pull it out before age 59 and a half, then the penalty applies as well, 10% penalty.
Yeah, so that's the 5-year rule on your contributions. The amount that you contributed, you can pull right back out. That does not need to stay in there for 5 years. That's another common misunderstanding. I don't want you to take advantage of that. Don't think of that as, well, I can go grab that if I need to. But it's the growth. For the growth to be tax-free, you've got to be age 59 and a half, and you have had to have a Roth IRA for at least 5 years. Another common question is, well, is it the same Roth IRA? No. You could start, stop. In total, if it's 5 years, then you've met it. Does it need to be consecutive years? No. Does each new Roth IRA, so you open one at Fidelity and then you open one at American Funds, do they each have a 5-year? Nope. It's an aggregate. The second 5-year rule, though, really trips people up, and there's a very common, we've done a lot of content on one nuance with this, but that's the 5-year rule on Roth conversions.
Mm-hmm. And this one is different because, well, first of all, let's define Roth conversion if you're not familiar with that. This is taking money that was in a traditional account that we would consider it to be pre-tax money usually, although not necessarily, and you're moving it out of that traditional account into the Roth and paying any amount of taxes in between. That is the conversion. The reason you would do that is because you're trying to get the money repositioned into a tax-free account. So you're trying to increase the amount of money in that type of a tax shelter that can grow tax-free. Well, each of those conversions that you do, you might do a little bit of a conversion every single year. And every one of those conversions has its own 5-year period that we start counting. We start the stopwatch after you've gotten to 5 years. Then the growth on that account is tax-free for you. And as long as you're over age 59 and a half, then you avoid the 10% penalty there as well.
And this one is different in that if you do let's say you do a Roth conversion of 10 grand. So now you pay the tax on it. So now you have that $10,000 of basis. Sorry for that geeky tax term. That basis, you've got to wait 5 years before you can pull that out. Versus if you were to contribute, a couple years in a row, so you've contributed $5,000, you can pull that 10 grand. You can pull that basis out of your contribution at any time. For a Roth conversion, you've got to wait 5 years to even touch the basis. And then here's the nuance. Once you turn age 59 and a half, does the 5-year rule still matter? Does it still apply on Roth conversions? That answer is no and yes. It no longer matters on your basis. So you can do a Roth conversion at age 60 of 10 grand, and if you pull that 10 grand out a year later, no issue. But the 5-year rule still does matter on the growth. If that 10 grand grew to $10,100 in a year or whatever it is, maybe it grew $1,000 in a year, that $1,000 of growth, that has to stay in for 5 years. That 5-year rule still matters on the growth once you turn age 59 and a half. Very, very confusing. A lot of contradictory information out there. We've done a lot of content trying to clear that up. 5-year rules.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of this, Congress was trying to prevent people from finding a backdoor way to get around 10% penalties for the most part, right? Otherwise, when you normally pull money out of a traditional IRA, if you're under age 59 and a half, you're going to pay taxes and a 10% penalty with just a few exceptions. Well, one of the exceptions is a Roth conversion. And so if there was a way for you to, instead of pulling money out of a traditional IRA, you moved it to a Roth and then pulled it out, that theoretically would help you avoid the 10% penalty. Well, Congress was onto that from the very beginning, and that's why these 5-year rules bring so much complexity. It's just to kind of lock down people from being able to skirt the system.
And then one other 5-year rule confusion, and we've cleared the air on this. This is the 11th season of the Wise Money Show. I think our first or second, maybe it was our second season, we did a show explaining what I'm about to tell you right now. And it got a lot of attention because people didn't believe it. And I still really don't believe it. They have probably changed these rules at some point. I don't think they've changed them yet. Meeting the 5-year rule requirement for a Roth 401k does not satisfy the 5-year rule for a Roth IRA. So, meaning during your career, if you've contributed to your Roth 401k, and that's it, and it grows and grows and grows, and that's all you've done, you've never had a Roth IRA, and you retire, you're going to want to roll your Roth 401k over to a Roth IRA, so you've got more flexibility. And then if you just start drawing out of that Roth IRA, you haven't met the 5-year rule. Yeah, you did on the Roth 401k, but you haven't had a Roth IRA for at least 5 years. It seems cruel. I didn't make the rules, and but that's how it works. So get that 5-year clock started. Get it so you don't even need to think about this anymore. So,
That's right.
Mm-hmm. All right, next common question is all under the category of how should I withhold taxes on my Roth conversion, specifically when I'm under age 59 and a half. So, Josh, you mentioned when you were explaining a Roth conversion that this is when you take dollars that you've already contributed to your traditional IRA. And tucked within this question, it has to do with backdoor Roth. So we'll get into that here in a few minutes as well. But where you've already got dollars in your traditional IRA, most of those, we presume, unless you're doing a backdoor Roth, those are pre-tax. When you then convert those dollars, transfer those dollars to your Roth IRA, that's an exception of that 10% penalty, as long as the money that comes out of your traditional IRA lands in your Roth IRA. What if you do tax withholdings, and what if you're not yet age 59 and a half? We're going to explain how that works, what happens, what you should do instead. That and more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. All right. I had to stretch that teaser out there. Here we go. Bonus question. What's one financial decision you're glad you didn't make? I'll tell you mine, and you guys know about it because you're my de facto financial planners. A few years ago, right after all this money was created and thrown into the economy, housing values were starting to go up, and we were thinking about building a house. And now, a few years from now, I might look back and say, "Oh no, we really should have." But looking at how things have played out over the last 3 years, I am so glad we didn't. I'm so glad we didn't. Housing decisions play such an enormous role in your finances. Now, don't get me wrong. They play an enormous role in your life. It determines your neighborhood, your neighbors, like so much. Like that's why homes can be so emotional, and that decision is so crucial. But it really distinguishes or has a lot of follow-on financial commitments. When you decide where you're going to live, property taxes are just what they are. The homeowners insurance rates are what they are. Getting maintenance done, it is what it is. And so, I'm super glad. And the lot that we were on contract to buy, that we said, no, we're not going to close on it. The house was built on that just recently, and it's very ugly. So that gives the family a little, cool. Good. So that's one financial decision I'm glad we didn't make.
Mine's similar to that. Growing up, I had a friend who had a cabin up north, and every weekend, they'd be up there hanging out on the lake and riding motorcycles, just having fun, kind of out in the wilderness. And growing up, like in my mind, that was, if you could pull that off, you had arrived. And I always thought, oh, that'd be a fun goal to have, a little lake cottage up north somewhere.
And it works for a lot of people.
It really does. But right now, at the stage of life that I'm in, when I thought, with teenagers at home, that would be when you'd really enjoy it a lot. Like, we're so busy, and it just wouldn't have fit. Like, the things that we would have had to have said no to for that to work, I don't think I I would have valued the house or the lake property as much as I value what we are doing instead.
It's funny. A friend of ours, you might not know this full story, but he bought the lake house and got it all ready. And the girls were young. And then he like did all this work and like forced it. Like, we got to go up north because I got to do this work. And after 2, maybe 3 years of them not using it after that work was done, he sold it. Because the girls are in sports and their family is just busy. And even to say, no, we're going to inject this peace and tranquility and just getting away, you couldn't do it. Like he said, in a summer, they'd maybe be able to go twice. Yeah. And he's like, I can't do it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that I think if I've been thankful about the financial things I haven't done, it's probably when before we moved into the house that we live in now for the past 15 years, we looked at a number of different places, and we did not get impatient. But it was every time we would go to a restaurant like Eddie's Steak Shack in Granger, you'd have those real estate magazines, and so you'd get them. And instead of engaging with your family, you're looking through real estate magazines at houses and other things. And like, okay, what? But I can see now a couple of the places that we looked at that were pretty cool that we did not buy would have it would not have worked out.
Isn't that interesting? All three of us, the first thing that came to mind was housing and real estate. There's a lesson in there somewhere if you're able to stay with us. So, all right, here we go. Third segment. We'll pick up the withholdings on the Roth, and we'll definitely get into the misunderstanding number 4 as well. So, third segment. Here we go. When you're doing a Roth conversion, you can withhold taxes on it, and it is taxable. The question is, should you withhold taxes? And specifically, if you're not yet age 59 and a half, what should you do instead? We're helping with that right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode of the Wise Money Show is on podcast. Wherever you listen, just search the Wise Money Show. Subscribe to it there or follow us there as well. And rate the program there. That's helpful feedback for us, and also helps others that are looking for wise content about financial matters, helps them find us as well. We appreciate that. Talking about the most common questions that we get regarding the Roth IRA. I've got the top 5, but in each of these questions, there's 4 or 5 sort of connected, tangential questions related to it. So we're hitting surface questions and then also going very deep. So wherever you're at with your understanding of the Roth IRA, we're helping you with it right now. This third misunderstanding has to do with withholding taxes on Roth conversions when you're not yet age 59 and a half. Left it off on a cliffhanger there. If you are not yet age 59 and a half, say you do a Roth conversion of 10 grand and you say, I'm going to withhold $2,000 for taxes. That 10 grand comes out of your IRA. 2 grand goes to Uncle Sam, goes to taxes, and 8 grand lands in your Roth IRA. Josh, you mentioned a Roth conversion, that 8 grand, that's one of the exceptions to the early withdrawal penalty, the 10%. But 10 came out, only 8 landed in your Roth. That 2 grand, this seemed punitive. That 2 grand is penalized.
All of it is taxed, potentially. But the 2,000, the part that doesn't land back in the Roth IRA, is also penalized. So, and this can be a surprise. A lot of people don't catch it until they're filing their tax returns, and maybe they would have considered a different game plan. If instead of having some taxes peeled off the top, and as you said, 2 grand sent to Uncle Sam and only let 8,000 land in the Roth IRA, what if you could let all 10,000 land in the Roth IRA? If that was the case, nothing changes with the income that lands on the tax return, but you avoid the 10% penalty on the dollars that went to Uncle Sam. Now, you still have to come up with the money for Uncle Sam. And this is where, your certified financial planner, when you're doing this type of tax planning, you'll be able to know ahead of time, before you even do the Roth conversion, what's the tax on this going to be? And if you know what that is, then you can plan ahead for it. And hopefully, if you've got the cash on hand, you can maybe write a check to Uncle Sam as a tax estimate, quarterly estimate. Or maybe you're already far enough ahead on your withholdings, on your paycheck money or somewhere else, that you actually have some refund to play with here. And you essentially let your taxes get covered by what would have otherwise landed in your bank account as a refund in the spring.
Yep. Yeah. So tucked in here also with holding taxes on Roth conversions, we get a lot of questions about the backdoor Roth IRA. A lot of questions. And I would say the most common is when you are contributing to one IRA after tax where you're not getting the deduction, and you try and do the Roth conversion. So you say, well, I don't need to withhold on this because it's after tax money that I'm using, when in fact you've got another IRA at a different company that is all pre-tax money. So buried in this second misunderstanding is the awareness that there are times when many IRAs are treated as one IRA in the eyes of the IRS. And a Roth conversion is one such time where all of your different IRAs get basically added together, aggregated, and the nature of, well, do you have any after-tax money? And then do you have any pre-tax money? They're all sort of aggregated and treated pro rata when you then do a Roth conversion.
And I would call that your traditional IRA.
Traditional IRA, yeah. Yep. So
it's cleanest. It works best if you have empty IRAs in order to do these backdoor Roth contributions. That way, when you do put money into the IRA on an after-tax basis, and then you convert into the Roth, that second step in the backdoor contribution, you're essentially adding no income to your tax return because it's already been taxed. It hasn't been sitting in the traditional IRA long enough to accumulate any gains that you're going to pay taxes on. Everything is clean and tidy. It gets messy when you have old IRA dollars that are sitting there that essentially get commingled together with your backdoor Roth contribution when we're figuring out what's the taxation on this transaction.
Yeah. Should you consider doing a backdoor Roth even this year? Work with your certified financial planner. Make sure that your CFP is doing comprehensive financial planning, looking at your tax picture, doing a tax projection, and see, does it make sense? And it sounds fancy. It's not for everyone. Doesn't make sense in all situations. And one of those reasons could be, well, I've got a large balance of pre-tax dollars in my traditional IRA already. So work with your CFP on that. All right, let's jump over to the fourth most common question or common misunderstanding with Roth IRAs, and that is, when should I begin withdrawing from my Roth IRA in retirement? A lot of people want to use it immediately. And you might, if you're, again, a senior sort of veteran on Roth IRA concepts, you might say, what? Why would people want to do that? It's just, I think it's human nature to not want to pay tax, especially early in retirement when maybe you're in your go-go years and you're withdrawing a large chunk from your retirement portfolio. Maybe you're also waking up to the impact of IRA withdrawals on your Social Security or on potentially what you're going to pay for Medicare Part B. And I do see a lot of people that say, shouldn't we just draw from the Roth first? Because I want that benefit.
Yeah. And we end up advising most people to do the exact opposite, right? And it is all rooted in this idea that the power of a Roth IRA comes from letting it compound and grow over time as long as possible. And that's because all that growth, all the accumulation, the gains, the interest, whatever that is building up within that account, the fact that it is tax-free and it gets bigger and bigger with time, well, how much time do you want that to be multiplying for you? Well, the answer is as long as possible, right? And so if you can postpone and let the Roth be some of the latest dollars that you use in retirement, and instead use those traditional accounts and maybe some other taxable accounts that you have where there is an IOU to the government that has been building up, and you can start diffusing that very intentionally over time, that just leaves the Roth IRA undisturbed. It lets it compound tax-free for you even longer.
We want you to have tax diversification. We want you to show up at retirement's doorstep and have a portfolio that, number one, you've already run the miles on and done the stress testing to confirm, yep, the portfolio is the right size for your retirement goals. You can retire with confidence. But then from a tax standpoint, we want you to have that portfolio structured so that, yeah, maybe a chunk is pre-tax. Maybe, hopefully, a large chunk is growing tax-free in a Roth. Maybe a chunk is even non-tax sheltered, so a joint account, individual account, something like that. And then strategically working with your certified financial planner to come up with the right withdrawal strategy. And oftentimes just assuming that, well, the last dollars that you'll touch are the Roth. Just had an example this year where some folks that we've been serving for a long time, they've been retired for about, I want to say 9 years, 8-9 years. And we took our first distribution from our Roth this year. So mid to late 70s. And they had already taken, they've got their monthly withdrawal, and they'd already needed a couple extra chunks. I think they were doing some vacations and some other things. Well, then it was, hey, we're also buying a car. Mm-hmm. And they reached out, and they actually asked the question, we need about X amount. I think they needed an extra $15,000. Should we take some of this from our Roth? Because I think when I do the math and add it all up, I think that's going to push us into the 22% bracket. And they've always been in the 12%. And I did the math, and it's like, absolutely, you're right. Yeah. And I thought through it and such, and I'm like, yeah, there would be a benefit to letting the Roth continue to grow. But to avoid going from the 12 to the 22%, we decided to take a chunk from the Roth.
Mm-hmm. Or going from the lowest tier of Part B premiums to now all of a sudden IRMA is kicking in, and you're going to pay extra on your Medicare Part B premiums in the future, Part D as well.
Yeah.
So you're exactly right. Like if in a normal year it makes sense to maximize your tax bracket by using your traditional accounts, if all of a sudden there are some of these anomalies, either an emergency that comes up or maybe an extra special trip or big project around the house, yeah, sometimes that is exactly the scenario where you would want to turn to some tax-free dollars. Or, we've talked on this show before about maybe that's a time where you do some temporary borrowing against a home equity line and then pay it back in a future tax year, that sort of thing. So lots of strategies, and tax planning is at the root of all of that.
That's right. Lots of considerations. Got to work with your CFP who knows your tax picture and knows your financial future as well and can help give you some guidance on that. All right. We've got the fifth most common question that we get about Roth IRAs. We've got that and more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Okay. Last break. What's the hardest part of sticking to a budget, and how do you overcome it?
Like other than the budgeting part of sticking to a budget?
Well,
the discipline part?
The discipline? Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, I think the hardest part about a budget is creating it. And then the hardest part after it's created is sticking to it. And, a lot of times, especially if you're married and you have a budget, people don't look forward to, or they're not seeking conflict. And so it's easier to just avoid conflict. And so you don't talk about the budget.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't get done. And then
I'll confess here, Cindy just got the Amazon app. And I know that's going to sound crazy. She's never purchased anything on Amazon. It's like anytime she or the kids need something from Amazon, I think it was like I was one of the, when it first came out and started becoming a thing, I created it, and it was always like, well, Mike, I don't want to mess something up. So you just order it. And we've just been in that rut for 15 years. And I don't know why, but it was finally, she was like, I'm just going to start buying stuff on Amazon myself. And I just got to say,
Kevin, is the budget gone?
It does create some conflict. And I just can't really express what I feel when there's a package at the front door and it's not something I ordered. And again, it's not like it needs to be for me, but it's like, I wonder what that cost. Because I don't know anymore.
Oh, my.
So
that's funny. Yeah. You know how on a tax return you put your title, down next to your name at the signature line or whatever? I think Andrea's would be Amazon manager.
Oh, nice.
Because we're always having packages, and it feels like about half of them end up getting sent back, or something came wrong or whatever.
No, I wouldn't argue with anything you guys said of the discipline. So sticking with it. Kevin, you also said, well, even getting started.
Yeah,
But I think connected to that, what I would say the hardest part of sticking to a budget is overcoming discouragement. Setting a budget is you're going to fail. Like as soon as you declare, well, we're going to spend this much and this much and this month, this is what the month is going to look like. Inevitably, a month is not going to look like that. Maybe ever. You might not ever have a month where you're on budget. And I know some of you are very, very disciplined and say, what are you talking about? All of our months look, okay. For many people, there's going to be an expense that's over your budget. Something's going to pop up. And especially when you get started, if you've never done it before, things are going to surprise you. And the fortitude to overcome that discouragement and just keep going, that seems like the hardest part. The emotions, the failure that you're going to inevitably face. Stick to it.
It gets even more complicated if you feel like it's your spouse that's failing against the budget.
Yeah.
And that's where the conflict comes, right? No, I am very committed to this and they are partially committed to this, or vice versa.
It's worth it. It's worth it. There's freedom in that discipline. Even though that seems contradictory, we've talked about that before. There's freedom in that discipline. So Kevin, you often have said, a budget isn't just a task. It's a skill.
Absolutely.
It's not just going to come natural. So stick to it. All right, here we go. 4th segment, land on the plane. Be ready to share any additional misunderstandings, questions about Roth IRA. I'm assuming we'll have time for it. Here we go. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode of the Wise Money Show, as well as it's nearly 2,000 videos now, is on the Wise Money YouTube channel. So if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. There's bonus content as well. There's shorts. There's daily videos, 8 minutes long, 10 minutes long, something like that. All of that designed. Every second is designed to help you take your next wise step, inspire you, motivate you, instruct you on taking your next wise step in your financial life. So if you haven't done so, go to YouTube, search The Wise Money Show, subscribe to it there, and leave your most common Roth IRA question right there, and we are going to answer it. That's where we're hitting right now. And the 5th most common question that we get is, how should I invest my Roth IRA? And I would actually say, oftentimes, again, these questions come in different flavors, that even though they're all part of the same carton of ice cream. And my Roth IRA is invested the same as everything else. Is that right? My Roth IRA, I am taking less risk than everything else. These sorts of questions. Guys, how should you invest your Roth IRA? The same as everything else? Less risk? More risk? What do you think?
Not necessarily. If most of your investment decisions need to take into consideration, well, what is the job that you're asking this investment account to do? What's its purpose? And usually tied to the purpose or the eventual use of this money is some kind of a time horizon. Am I going to be using this money 5 years from now, or is this a pool of funds that I'm not going to touch for literally decades? And the longer your time horizon, usually the more aggressive or growth-oriented you're going to want to be, because the ups and the downs of the market or whatever investment you're in, they tend to shake themselves out over time. They might feel emotional and they might feel scary in the short term, but over the long term, you forget about those bumps in the road and you just look back with awe and see, wow, this thing really compounded over the past 10, 20, 30 years. And so if a Roth IRA, by its nature, we said in an earlier segment that this is probably money that you're going to want to use later in retirement. So it might have a little bit longer time horizon than some of your other investment accounts. If that's the case, let the time horizon have an impact on how you structure those investments.
And so I completely agree. I have a snap answer to this. And it's not one size fits all, but I bet it's one size fits most, which, if you see that on the tag, it's not going to fit. It's not going to fit. But it's that your Roth IRA should be more aggressive than everything else. And the contradiction there is that, well, that means you're in growth-oriented investments. Growth-oriented investments have capital gains. Those are taxed at favorable rates compared to ordinary income, things like bonds. And so, okay, I get that. However, Josh, you said time horizon's the first question you answer before you answer, well, what investment should I select? That's completely true. And I would assume the Roth IRA is going to be some of the last dollars you touch. That's part. The other half of that, though, the reason why I would say it should be invested a little bit more aggressively is what's the benefit of the Roth on the growth?
That it's tax-free, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would want your Roth IRA positioned to experience as much potential growth as possible so that you can get that tax-free benefit on that.
Here's the only caveat I might add. You don't want to be speculative necessarily, right?
Yes, you do. No, I'm just kidding.
You could go maybe too far, and the only thing worse than watching your investment accounts decline, at least your traditional IRA, is watching tax-free dollars either go to money heaven or disappear because it was an investment that maybe was ill-advised. It was you were reaching a little bit on the level of risk that you can stomach, and watching those types of accounts decline, it's like, well, you're the only one feeling that pain. Uncle Sam didn't also see his tax IOU in your 401k decline when the market was down. So anyway, I would say, yes, be more growth oriented, but don't be excessive in the amount of risk necessarily. And
excessive, be careful how we define it, because speculative, risk is relative to time. So if I've got a lot of time and I've got all equities in my Roth IRA, as long as I'm diversified, because to me, speculative is, I heard a guy at the water cooler talking about this stock, and just a reminder, the guy at the water cooler who talks about his stocks never talks about the ones that are losing, right? He's always talking about the winners, and this is unbelievable, and my 401k is up 72% this year, and these things, and you're like, maybe. But I would have a well-diversified portfolio and let it ride. And we need to have that money growing at least an 8% compound annual growth rate to keep up with inflation and the devaluation of the dollar and a number of these other factors that are chipping away at your purchasing power.
If you are, right now, stock market has had, a great year and volatility here in the short term. But and if you're thinking, you know what, I want to reduce risk a little bit, I want to get a little bit of safety, I don't know, I'd encourage you to maybe not just rebalance all of your accounts. Maybe look at your total portfolio and reduce the risk level if you want to in your total portfolio, but maybe have your pre-tax dollars take a little bit less risk and your Roth take a little bit more risk. So, but you got, these guys, this is all in a vacuum. You've got to work with your CFP who's looking at all 6 areas of your financial life, knows your goals, knows your temptations, your emotions, and your time horizon, and help craft a tailored strategy directly for you. Okay, guys, those are the most common categories of questions, the 5 most common. There's a lot others. What are some of the other most common questions that maybe we haven't hit?
Well, I don't know if it's question or misconception, but as much as we talk about the Roth IRA and sing its praises and talk about how powerful it is and, hopefully spark your curiosity and your own investigation, consider whether or not this fits for you. Recognize it might not. There might be a traditional IRA that works better for you, or a traditional 401k contribution instead of the Roth. It is not as you said earlier, one size fits all. I think if you are on the fence as to whether or not it makes sense to use a traditional account or a Roth, we would always come along and push you to the Roth side. If it's literally, jump ball. But there are some times or some years, some circumstances where actually the tax savings or reducing your income in this particular calendar year makes more sense. So I'm going to use traditional tools instead of a Roth. You still have to do the work every year. And so to me, the point in all this is that your tax planning work is never done. And your decision on whether to use IRA or Roth IRA should never just be carved into stone. It should be reinvestigated on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of them. I think one common misconception is I can only have one kind. So if I have an $8,000 coupon that I can deposit $8,000 into either a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, a lot of times people think, well, I have to do it into just one. And a lot of times it makes the most sense to probably just put it in just one. But there are times when it makes sense to, especially if your traditional IRA, you're deducting that money to figure out how do I optimize my tax picture so that I get that filled up and then put the rest into a Roth IRA.
Yeah, get your adjusted gross income below a certain level by doing pre-tax and the rest in the Roth.
Okay, I've got one for you.
Yep.
My Roth IRA is a type of investment.
Yeah.
So
what are Roths paying these days?
Right.
You get that question?
Right. I'm going to invest in a Roth. And the truth is the Roth is really an umbrella. And under that umbrella, I can have almost any investment under the sun, unless it's speculative. And then I would get in trouble with you guys. But I can have anything under the sun. I can own stock in a privately held company in my Roth IRA. There's all types.
Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
His Roth into what? A couple billion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a great one. The other one that I would tuck in there, we've shared it, is that there's a modified adjusted gross income limit on contributions. And meaning if you've got to have earned income to make a contribution, but your total income for your entire household and all sources of income, it can't be too much. That is just a bizarre thing. And see, a lot of people where their income all of a sudden creeps above that, they're still contributing to their Roth, thinking everything's fine. Nope, you just created an enormous mess. So work with your certified financial planner. Do tax planning. Your tax planning, your tax decisions is connected to your investment strategy, your retirement strategy as well. That's all the time we have for today. On behalf of Josh Gregory, Kevin Corhorn, all of us at KFG, have a great weekend. We'll see you next Saturday for the Wise Money Show with Corhorn Financial Group.
Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, member FINRA/SIPC. Advisory services offered through KFG Wealth Management, LLC. Doing business as Corhorn Financial Group. KFG Wealth Management, LLC and Silver Oak Securities Incorporated companies are unaffiliated.